"You'll pay for this, you old idiot. Shut up, Luro." The voice, shrill and shocking, echoed through the courtroom, not from a human mouth, but from the small green and yellow parrot perched in its cage. The judge's gavel, suspended in mid-air, froze. Donna Clara, the elderly woman accused of murder, looked up with tear-filled eyes, incredulous. The prosecutor and the audience froze. What that bird had just revealed, a secret guarded by feathers and beak, was about to turn the decade's most controversial trial upside down, and an innocent life hung in its wings. The silence broken by Luro's voice was so heavy it seemed to suck the air from the room. Judge Helena, a woman with a serious demeanor and impeccably styled gray hair, slowly lowered her gavel, her eyes fixed on the small bird. No one dared to move. The prosecutor, Dr. Almeida, who moments before had vehemently argued for Donna Clara's guilt, stood with his mouth agape, his face pale. The audience, previously murmuring and curious, now resembled a collection of statues, every gaze fixed on the cage where Luro, oblivious to the chaos he had caused, cleaned one of his feathers with his beak. Donna Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. Her eyes, already so tired and swollen from crying, widened. It was Luro. Her Luro. The one who had been her only confidant during the long months of reclusion. The only one who didn't judge her, had just spoken, and what he said. "You'll pay for this, you old idiot. And shut up, Luro." The words were chillingly clear, and they came from a place that wasn't the courtroom. She clasped her wrinkled hands, a mix of dread and a tiny, almost imperceptible flicker of hope igniting in her chest. Could it be possible? Judge Helena cleared her throat, her voice hoarse as she tried to regain control. "Order in the court. What was that? Can anyone explain the origin of those words?" Her question was directed at no one in particular, but at everyone. Dr. Almeida, composing himself, stepped forward, forcing an incredulous smile. "Your Honor, with all due respect, it appears the defendant's pet is imitating sounds. It's a parrot, after all. Surely we cannot consider this as evidence." He gestured, trying to divert attention from what had been said. But Luro's words had planted a seed of doubt. It wasn't just a random sound, it was a complete sentence, charged with fury and directed at an old idiot, followed by an order for Luro himself to shut up. The memory of the violent argument Donna Clara had heard from her neighbor, Mr. Ricardo's house, on the night of the tragedy, reverberated in her mind. She was sure she had heard raised voices, but she had never been able to distinguish the words. Now, Luro seemed to have filled that gap. Donna Clara's life had fallen apart since the discovery of Mr. Ricardo's body. The police, given her apparent reclusion and the absence of other obvious suspects, quickly pointed to her as the culprit. Circumstantial evidence, a gardening glove found near the crime scene that, although not hers, seemed to belong to someone of her age and size, and the alleged animosity over a garden fence, was enough for the community to turn its back on her. Donna Clara, accustomed to solitude, found herself even more isolated, her reputation stained by an accusation she swore was false. The weight of injustice was an almost unbearable burden. Judge Helena observed the prosecutor, then the defendant, and finally the parrot. Her eyes narrowed in contemplation. She was known for her integrity and for leaving no stone unturned in her search for the truth. "Dr. Almeida, I understand your objection, but these are not random words. They are specific phrases, and one of them mentions the bird itself. This is, at the very least, peculiar." She looked at Donna Clara, who now held Luro's cage with trembling hands, a thread of hope in her tear-filled eyes. That small green and yellow feathered creature, her only solace, might be the key to unraveling the darkness that enveloped her. The court waited in tense silence for the judge's next decision, which could change Donna Clara's fate forever. Judge Helena, with her always impeccable posture, brought a hand to her chin, her eyes fixed on Donna Clara and the parrot, Luro. A heavy silence filled the room, interrupted only by the faint rustling of Luro's feathers as he seemed oblivious to the unfolding drama. Her decision, at that moment, was crucial. There was no precedent in her long career for something like this. How could a court of justice consider the words of an animal? Yet the phrase was so specific, so charged with emotion, that it was impossible to dismiss it as mere chance. Her sense of justice, forged in years of searching for the truth, prevented her from ignoring the inexplicable. Donna Clara, seated in the defendant's chair, felt her heart beat erratically. Her hands, which had previously trembled with despair, now clutched Luro's cage with renewed, almost protective strength. She looked at Judge Helena with a silent plea, a mixture of hope and terror. If Luro were ignored, her last chance would be lost. But if, by some miracle, his words were considered. A solitary tear rolled down her wrinkled face. But this time, it wasn't from sadness, but from a fragile, almost unbelievable hope. Luro, her faithful friend, tilted his head as if sensing his owner's tension and let out a soft chirp. Dr. Almeida, the prosecutor, sensing the judge's hesitation, intervened again, his voice laden with calculated urgency. Your Honor, with all due respect to the court and the pursuit of truth, we must maintain the seriousness of the proceedings. A parrot, however intelligent, cannot be a witness. Its words are mere repetitions of sounds, without context or intent. Accepting this would set a dangerous precedent and discredit the entire judicial system. He gestured, trying to convince everyone of the irrationality of the situation, while the audience murmured, divided between curiosity and skepticism. Judge Helena raised her hand, silencing the prosecutor and the audience. Her eyes, which had previously reflected uncertainty, now shone with cold determination. Dr. Almeida, I understand your concern about precedent. However, my primary function is to ensure that justice is done, and the truth at times manifests itself in the most unexpected ways. She paused, looking directly at Donna Clara, who held her breath. The words uttered by this bird are, at the very least, intriguing. They are not random. They form coherent sentences charged with meaning, and one of them mentions Luro himself. I cannot in good conscience ignore something that may, even remotely, shed light on this case. The judge's decision hung in the air, altering the course of the trial. Given the extraordinary nature of this event, and in the name of the incessant search for truth, I order a temporary suspension of this session. I will request the presence of animal behavior and vocalization specialists to assess Luro the parrot's ability to reproduce and possibly contextualize the words he uttered. We cannot discard any clue, however unusual it may seem when a person's freedom is at stake. Judge Helena struck her gavel, a sound that this time did not close a chapter, but opened a new and unpredictable path for Donna Clara, who felt a warmth spread through her chest, a small glimmer of light amidst the darkness. Fate, or perhaps Luro, had given her a second chance. The gavel's sharp echo still reverberated in the room, but for Donna Clara, the sound was an unexpected melody, a breath of life where before there had only been despair. A warmth spread through her chest, and the tear that rolled down her wrinkled face, this time, was of such profound relief it almost choked her. She clutched Luro's cage, and the small bird, as if understanding the magnitude of the moment, rubbed its head against the bars, letting out a soft warble. It wasn't just a suspension. It was a window opening to the truth, a chance to prove her innocence, something she had already lost hope of having. Judge Helena, with her serious expression, observed the defendant's reaction. There was something in Donna Clara's quietude, in the way she clung to the parrot, that touched the judge. It wasn't the posture of a criminal, but of an exhausted soul, finally finding a thread of hope. The decision she had made was audacious, and she knew it would be met with criticism, but her conscience would allow no less. Justice, for her, was not just about following the law, but about uncovering the truth, no matter how peculiar the path. Dr. Almeida, on the other hand, was visibly frustrated. His thin lips tightened into a hard line. That parrot, with its untimely intervention, had thrown a wrench into his case, which he considered solid and irrefutable. He approached his team, gesturing vehemently, whispering instructions. To him, the judge was yielding to dangerous sentimentalism, turning a respectable court into a circus. A prosecutor's reputation depended on victories, and an animal's interference was a setback he neither expected nor easily accepted. As the court officers began to clear the room, the murmurs of the audience intensified. Curiosity and skepticism mingled in equal measure. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others, wide-eyed, seemed fascinated by the turn of events. The story of Donna Clara and her parrot, which was once just a tragic footnote about a reclusive elderly woman, now took on the contours of an extraordinary tale. Doubt, previously contained, began to spread like a whisper, questioning the official narrative. Donna Clara was gently led out of the courtroom, Luro still in her arms. The fresh air of the street felt lighter, less oppressive. A crowd of journalists and curious onlookers gathered, cameras flashing, microphones extended. She avoided their gazes, but felt the change in the atmosphere. It was no longer unanimous scorn, but a mix of intrigue and perhaps a hint of compassion. The weight on her shoulders hadn't completely disappeared, but a part of it had been lifted, replaced by a silent determination. She needed to be strong, not just for herself, but for Luro, who had risked everything for her. In the days that followed, news of the trial's suspension and the feathered witness dominated the headlines. Judge Helena, firm in her decision, arranged for the specialists to come. Donna Clara, back in her small house, which had once seemed like a prison, now saw it as a sanctuary of waiting. She spent hours talking to Luro, repeating the phrases he had uttered, hoping he might, finally, reveal more. The parrot, oblivious to the complexity of the human world, merely watched her with his intelligent eyes, occasionally imitating a sound or a word, but never the crucial phrases. The wait was agonizing, but hope, once a small thread, now wove itself into a cloak of faith, warming her heart. She knew the truth was there, guarded in Luro's memories, and that with the judge's help it would finally come to light. The wait, which had once been a silent martyrdom, had now transformed into an agony filled with expectation for Donna Clara. In the small living room of her house, she watched Luro with an almost painful intensity. Every chirp, every movement of his beak was scrutinized in the hope that he would repeat the phrases that had turned her world upside down. "You'll pay for this, you old idiot! Shut up, Luro!" She whispered the words, trying to incite him, but the parrot merely looked at her with his intelligent eyes, shaking his head or imitating the sound of the kettle, oblivious to the urgency that consumed his owner. The reclusion, which had once been a choice, now felt like a prison, but with a door ajar to freedom. That thread of hope, once so fragile, was now the only thing keeping her on her feet. Donna Clara felt the weight of the community's gazes, which now divided between curiosity and an incipient sympathy. People stopped in front of her house, no longer with scorn, but with a mix of astonishment and expectation. The injustice that suffocated her began to dissipate, replaced by the possibility that the truth, after all, might be revealed. She stroked Luro's feathers, feeling the softness and warmth of the small body, the only family she had left, the only being who seemed to believe in her. 2 days later, Judge Helena fulfilled her promise. A team of specialists, led by Dr. Sophia, a renowned ethologist with short hair and colorful framed glasses, arrived at Donna Clara's house. With them came discreet equipment and an aura of professionalism and veiled skepticism. Dr. Sophia, with a gentle smile but analytical eyes, explained the process. Donna Clara, we will observe Luro in his natural environment, try to recreate some conditions, and who knows, encourage him to express himself again. It's delicate work, and patience will be our greatest ally. Donna Clara felt a lump in her throat. It was the first time in months she had received strangers in her home, and their presence, though well-intentioned, was an invasion of her carefully constructed solitude. She watched Dr. Sophia and her assistant move around the room, setting up small cameras and audio recorders. Luro, initially curious, soon became wary, flying to the top of his cage and observing the intruders with suspicion. He didn't repeat the phrases, nor even his usual sounds. The parrot's silence was deafening to Donna Clara. Dr. Sophia tried various approaches. She played recordings of male voices, imitated argumentative tones, even used toys and treats to try and relax Luro. But the parrot remained silent, or only emitted unintelligible chirps and squawks. Frustration began to set in, not only among the specialists but also in Donna Clara, who watched hope slip through her fingers. She felt Dr. Sophia's gaze, who, though maintaining her composure, seemed to be starting to doubt the validity of that unusual testimony. "He was never like this," Donna Clara murmured, her voice choked, feeling responsible for Luro's silence. "He was always so talkative." Dr. Sophia nodded, understanding, but without giving false hope. "Animals are sensitive to their environment, Donna Clara. Change, pressure, all of this can affect behavior. We need time." Time, however, was a luxury Donna Clara didn't have. The trial was suspended but not cancelled, and with each day Luro remained silent. The shadow of impending conviction loomed larger over her. The human connection she so longed for seemed to depend on the voice of a parrot. Dr. Sophia, with an almost imperceptible sigh, adjusted her glasses, her eyes fixed on Luro, who was now distractedly pecking at a piece of fruit in his cage. 3 days had passed since the team had set up in Donna Clara's house, and the parrot, the voice of hope in the courtroom, remained stubbornly silent regarding the crucial phrases. The ethologist had tried everything: voice recordings, different tones, even the presence of other birds on a tablet. Nothing. Only generic chirps and imitations of household sounds, which were useless for the case. Donna Clara felt her heart clench with each failed attempt. The glimmer of light from the judge was closing, and the darkness of imminent conviction began to swallow her again. She watched Dr. Sophia and her assistant dismantle some equipment, a clear sign that patience was running out. The skepticism, previously veiled, was now evident in the glances they exchanged. Donna Clara felt like a burden, a deluded old woman making the justice system waste time on a fantasy. "Donna Clara," Dr. Sophia began, her voice soft but with a tone of finality, "we've done everything within our reach. Luro is an intelligent bird, no doubt, but it seems the stress of the courtroom, or perhaps the change in routine, has inhibited him. We haven't been able to replicate the conditions that led him to speak. Unfortunately, without further evidence, there's not much more we can do here." The ethologist's words fell upon Donna Clara like a sentence. Her shoulders slumped, and a tear held back for so long rolled down her face, a warm trail of despair. She hugged Luro's cage in a protective gesture. "But he knows," she whispered, her voice choked. "I know he knows. He was there. He heard." Dr. Sophia approached, a gentle hand on Donna Clara's shoulder. "I believe you heard something, and that Luro may have memorized it. But for the court, we need him to repeat the crucial phrases, proving they are not mere random repetitions." She sighed, a gesture of professional frustration. "I suggest you continue to talk to him, at your own pace, in his environment. Perhaps with time his memory will return. But for the investigation, for the court, we cannot wait indefinitely." The team packed away the last of their equipment, the atmosphere in the small room lightening for them, but weighing heavily on Donna Clara. Their departure meant the end of the truce. the return to the brutal reality of the trial. She felt Lauro's gaze, and for an instant the bird seemed to understand the gravity. That night, Donna Clara's solitude enveloped her even more. She sat in her favorite armchair, Lauro perched on her shoulder, his head nestled against her neck. She stroked his feathers, tears falling silently. "Lauro, my friend," she murmured, "what are we going to do now? They don't believe us." The parrot, in response, merely let out a soft chirp, almost a lament. Suddenly, Donna Clara had an idea, a distant memory of how Lauro had learned to speak. It wasn't through forced repetitions, but naturally with the emotion of the moment. She remembered how he used to imitate Mr. Ricardo, her neighbor, when he spoke to his wife, or when he argued with someone on the phone. Lauro was a mirror of others' emotions. What if the emotion could be recreated? She needed something Lauro would associate with that night, with those voices. She looked around, her house, her sanctuary, now a battlefield for memory. What if the key wasn't in repeating the phrases, but in reliving the moment? It was a risky gamble, the only one she had left. She walked to the window overlooking Mr. Ricardo's garden, now a crime scene. Memories of that night, the muffled sound of voices, the dread. She closed her eyes, trying to transport herself back to that moment. Lauro, on her shoulder, seemed restless. She needed an emotional trigger, something that would awaken the bird's memory. The truth was there, imprisoned in feathers and beak, and Donna Clara was determined to set it free. Donna Clara closed her eyes tightly, trying to push away the image of the empty room and the echo of Dr. Sophia's words. She couldn't give up. Lauro was her only hope. The truth was not only imprisoned in the bird's memories, but also in her own. She needed to relive that night, not just the dread, but the details that her mind, in its despair, had tried to erase. What were the sounds? The raised voices, yes. But there was something more. Mr. Ricardo was a man of habits, and his habits were noisy, peculiar. Suddenly, a flash. Mr. Ricardo's grandfather clock. An old object of dark wood and golden details that stood in his living room, very close to the window overlooking Donna Clara's garden. Every full hour, the clock emitted a melodic but slightly out of tune chime that Donna Clara heard perfectly in her house, especially at night, when the silence was deepest. On that fateful night, she remembered hearing the chime, but the sound had been muffled by the ensuing argument. Lauro, who spent part of the day at the neighbor's house, would certainly have been accustomed to that sound. With her heart beating faster, Donna Clara opened her eyes. Lauro, still on her shoulder, tilted his head as if sensing his owner's sudden energy. She stood up, walking to an old dresser in the living room. Inside a dusty drawer, she kept a small music box that had belonged to her mother. It wasn't the grandfather clock, but the box's chime, though softer, had a similar melody, a tone that evoked a certain nostalgia and, she hoped, memory. Donna Clara's wrinkled hands trembled slightly as she opened the box. The delicate melody began to fill the room, an almost forgotten sound, yet one that resonated with the quietness of the house. Lauro, on her shoulder, shivered. His eyes, previously curious, now widened. He jumped to the top of his cage, his feathers ruffled, and began to agitate, flapping his wings. Donna Clara watched, holding her breath. It was a sign. The music box continued to play its sweet, repetitive melody. Lauro then did something unexpected. Instead of just repeating the phrases, he began to imitate the sound of Mr. Ricardo's grandfather clock chime, but with an intensity and tone Donna Clara had never heard before. It was louder, more urgent, almost as if he were trying to drown something out. And then, amidst the sounds of the chime, a voice, not Lauro's, but a perfect and chillingly clear imitation of a young man's voice, burst forth. "You won't stop me, Uncle! I'm going to have what's mine!" Donna Clara brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes welling up with shock and overwhelming joy. It wasn't just the repetition of the old phrases, but a new one she had never heard, and which mentioned an uncle. The voice, full of anger and greed, was unmistakable. It was the voice of Mr. Ricardo's nephew, young Arthur, the one the community knew had a troubled relationship with his uncle over the inheritance. Luro had revealed the name. The turning point had arrived, and the truth finally was beginning to unravel in an unquestionable way. She hugged the cage, tears streaming freely, no longer from despair, but from pure gratitude. Luro, her little hero, had spoken, and what he said changed everything. Justice was not lost. Donna Clara felt the ground disappear beneath her feet, not from despair, but from a dizzying rush of pure hope. Luro's phrase, so clear, so charged with intent, resonated in her ears. "You won't stop me, Uncle. I'm going to have what's mine." And the voice, Arthur's voice, Ricardo's nephew, was unmistakable. The name, the threat, the explicit greed. It was the proof she had so desperately pleaded for, the truth Luro held. Tears streamed freely, wetting the parrot's feathers as he nestled on her shoulder, as if sharing her emotion. She clutched the music box, her little memory trigger. Like a newfound treasure, the melody still vibrating in her fingers. There was no time to lose. With hands still trembling, but now with renewed urgency, Donna Clara picked up the phone. She needed to call Judge Helena, Dr. Sophia, anyone who would listen and believe. Her voice choked with emotion. She dialed the judge's chambers number, which Dr. Sophia had left. On the other end of the line, the judge's secretary answered with a formal tone of voice. Donna Clara, struggling to contain her emotion, explained what had happened, the words tumbling out of her mouth. "My parrot, Luro, he spoke. He said the killer's name. It's Arthur, Mr. Ricardo's nephew." The secretary, accustomed to dealing with all sorts of situations, listened with a mix of incredulity and curiosity. She promised to relay the message to Judge Helena immediately. Donna Clara hung up, her heart still pounding, but with a feeling of lightness she hadn't felt in months. Luro, on her shoulder, let out a satisfied chirp, as if he knew the impact of his words and the turnaround they would cause. The news reached Judge Helena in her chambers as she reviewed Donna Clara's case files. Feeling the weight of the decision she would have to make if Luro didn't speak up, the secretary, with a somewhat hesitant voice, reported the phone call. At first, the judge felt a mix of skepticism and a pang of hope. Could it be true? After Dr. Sophia's frustration, she feared Donna Clara was clinging to an illusion, but the judge was a woman of principles, and the pursuit of truth was her unwavering compass. She instructed the secretary to contact Dr. Sophia and Donna Clara immediately, requesting the ethologist to return to the elderly woman's house urgently. Dr. Sophia, who was already home, disheartened by the mission's failure, received the call with surprise. At first, she thought it was a mistake, or that Donna Clara was in a state of denial. But the persistence of the judge's secretary and the mention that Judge Helena herself had requested her return ignited a spark of professionalism and curiosity. She quickly gathered her assistant and some equipment, heading back to Donna Clara's house, with a mix of apprehension and a remote hope that something might indeed have changed. Upon arrival, Dr. Sophia found Donna Clara with eyes red from crying, but with a radiant smile on her wrinkled face. The elderly woman could barely contain her excitement. "Doctor, he spoke. He said Arthur's name, and he said, 'You won't stop me, Uncle. I'm going to have what's mine.'" Donna Clara repeated the words, gesturing with her hands, her voice laden with an unwavering conviction that was hard to ignore. Dr. Sophia, still skeptical but intrigued by the elderly woman's intensity, asked for calm and explained that they needed a recording, concrete proof for the court. She quickly set up the equipment, preparing for the attempt. Donna Clara, with Lauro on her shoulder, picked up the music box again. The soft melody began to fill the room. Lauro, upon hearing the sound, began to agitate. His feathers ruffled, his eyes fixed on the box. Then, to the astonishment of Dr. Sophia and her assistant, the parrot began to imitate the grandfather clock's chime, louder, more urgent, and then, with impressive clarity, a young man's voice resonated. "You won't stop me, Uncle. I'm going to have what's mine." Dr. Sophia could barely believe what she saw and heard. The recording was being made, capturing every sound, every word with precision. Her expression, previously skeptical, transformed into pure astonishment, her glasses almost slipping from her nose. The voice, the phrase, the emotion. It was all so vivid, so real, that the ethologist felt a shiver run down her spine. She looked at Donna Clara, who was now crying with relief, hugging Lauro with all her might, her face illuminated by an unwavering faith. The truth, which had seemed so distant, had finally manifested itself, not through documents or human witnesses, but through the unexpected voice of a small parrot. Justice, indeed, was not lost, and Donna Clara's faith in her loyal friend had been rewarded in a way no one could have predicted, opening a new chapter for all of them. Dr. Sophia, still in shock, reviewed the recording several times, her fingers trembling slightly as she operated the device. Each repetition of Arthur's voice, with its explicit fury and greed, was a blow against the skepticism she had harbored. The clarity was undeniable, the emotion palpable. She looked up at Donna Clara, who, with Lauro nestled on her shoulder, displayed a smile that seemed to have erased years of pain and reclusion. Tears still marked the elderly woman's wrinkled face, but they were tears of pure gratitude and relief. The ethologist felt a profound wave of humility and admiration. "Donna Clara," Dr. Sophia managed to say, her voice choked with emotion, "this is extraordinary. We have the proof, the voice, the threat, the name. It's all here, recorded with impressive clarity." Donna Clara merely nodded, unable to utter a word, but her eyes spoke volumes, conveying a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Lauro, as if understanding the gravity of the moment, let out a soft chirp and affectionately pecked his owner's neck. Dr. Sophia's assistant, Agape, frantically took notes, aware of witnessing a historic moment. The team quickly packed up the equipment, now with a new sense of purpose and urgency. There was no more room for skepticism, only the imperative need to take that recording to Judge Helena. Dr. Sophia, previously disheartened, radiated renewed energy, her steps firm and decisive. "I need to take this to the judge immediately, Donna Clara," she explained, her voice laden with determination. "This recording changes everything. You will be exonerated." Donna Clara, with a smile that lit up her entire face, squeezed Dr. Sophia's hand, a gesture of profound trust. "Go, my dear. Go and show the truth. Let justice be done." That same day, Dr. Sophia went to Judge Helena's chambers. The judge, who had resumed reviewing Donna Clara's case files with a heavy heart, looked up as she saw the ethologist. The expression on Dr. Sophia's face, a mix of contained astonishment and professional triumph, already indicated that something significant had happened. "Judge Helena," Dr. Sophia began, placing the recorder on the dark wooden table. Lauro spoke, and he didn't just repeat the phrases, he revealed the killer's name and the motive. Judge Helena, a woman of always impeccable posture, leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the ethologist. "Proceed, doctor. Don't leave me in suspense." Dr. Sophia pressed play. The sound of the music box's chime filled the room, followed by the urgent imitation of the grandfather clock, and then Arthur's clear and angry voice resonated. "You won't stop me, Uncle. I'm going to have what's mine." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with revelation. Judge Helena, who had listened with an almost palpable concentration, sat upright, her expression now one of unwavering determination. She closed her eyes for an instant, processing the information, the clarity of the voice, the explicit mention of the family relationship, and the greed. "It's his voice," the judge murmured, opening her eyes, a glint of indignation and justice in her gaze. Unmistakable, and the phrase, "It's the confession we needed to unravel this heinous crime." She looked at Dr. Sophia, a glint of respect and gratitude in her eyes. "Doctor, your work was crucial. Donna Clara's unwavering faith, her persistence, and Lauro's surprising intelligence. They brought us the truth. Justice will be done." Judge Helena picked up the phone, her voice firm and laden with authority. "Secretary, please contact the prosecutor and the defense. Request an emergency meeting and prepare the documents for the formal reopening of the investigation. We need a search and seizure warrant for Arthur immediately, and he must be interrogated. The truth will prevail." Her voice was an echo of hope and righteousness, reverberating through the courthouse corridors. The news spread like wildfire through the city. The community, previously divided between skepticism and silent condemnation, now united in a buzz of astonishment, remorse, and admiration. The image of Donna Clara, the reclusive and wronged elderly woman, began to transform into that of a silent heroine, whose faith in her small companion had unraveled a web of greed and deceit that shocked everyone. In her small house, Donna Clara felt a lightness in her heart, a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Lauro, her faithful friend, was perched on her shoulder, affectionately pecking her ear. Justice, which had seemed so distant, was finally within reach. The overcoming of an immense emotional and social obstacle, not only for her, but for the community itself, which now saw the importance of looking beyond appearances. The truth, after all, had found its way, coming from the most improbable place. The gears of justice, previously jammed by the web of circumstantial evidence, now turned with impressive speed. Following Judge Helena's decisive instructions, an unprecedented stir took over the courthouse. The prosecutor, who had previously vehemently defended Donna Clara's guilt, received Lauro's recording with initial incredulity that quickly transformed into contained fury. Arthur's voice, with its explicit greed and veiled threat, was irrefutable testimony, a direct blow to his own conviction. Within hours, a search and seizure warrant was issued, and a police team, accompanied by investigators, headed to Arthur's residence. Arthur, a man in his early 30s, with an always disingenuous air, was caught completely by surprise. He was at home, reviewing financial documents, when the police team burst in. His face, previously pale, turned livid upon seeing the officers. He tried to maintain composure, raising his chin in a gesture of false indignation, but his eyes betrayed the panic that overwhelmed him. "What is this? What's the reason for such—" "An invasion?" he stammered, his voice failing and his hands trembling slightly. One of the officers, with the recording in hand, merely stared at him seriously. "We have substantial reasons to believe you're involved in the death of your uncle, Mr. Ricardo, and we have an unexpected witness." Arthur laughed, a dry, nervous, almost hysterical sound. "A witness? Who? That senile old neighbor and her talking parrot? Please, don't waste my time with these fantasies." The officer, without saying another word, pressed play on the recorder. Arthur's voice, clear and unmistakable, laden with anger and possessiveness, echoed through the room. "You won't stop me, Uncle. I'm going to have what's mine." Arthur's smile completely vanished, replaced by a chilling terror that spread across his face, revealing the truth behind his facade. As Arthur was led away for interrogation, handcuffed and with his head bowed, news of the turnaround spread through the community like an uncontrollable wildfire. The streets, previously filled with judgmental stares and malicious whispers directed at Donna Clara, now vibrated with a mix of shock, incredulity, and a profound sense of remorse. Neighbors who had turned their backs on the elderly woman now felt overwhelming shame. Many began to approach Donna Clara's small house, no longer with suspicion, but with a genuine desire to offer support and ask for forgiveness. Flowers and cards of solidarity began to appear at her door, a silent testament to a community that was learning a hard lesson about the importance of truth and the fragility of appearances. Donna Clara, in her living room, watched the commotion through the window. There was no triumph in her heart, nor a desire for revenge, only a profound relief and a persistent sadness for the tragedy that had befallen Ricardo, and for Arthur, who had allowed himself to be consumed by greed. Luro, on her shoulder, seemed to sense the change in atmosphere, chirping softly, as if sharing the complexity of her emotions. She stroked his feathers, feeling the unbreakable connection that united them, a bond forged in adversity. Overcoming for her was not just formal innocence, but the rediscovery of faith in humanity, even after so much pain and abandonment. Justice was on its way, not with the brutality she feared, but with the truth Luro had whispered. A truth that now resonated through the corridors of justice and the hearts of the community. The house, once a refuge of reclusion, now opened to a world that, though imperfect, still held the capacity for redemption. The sun finally began to shine again on her small house and on her heart, promising a new breath of life. The new breath of life the sun promised was not long in manifesting. In the days that followed Luro's revelation, Donna Clara's life, previously a labyrinth of anguish and solitude, began to unfold into a path of clarity and justice. News of the recording and Arthur's veiled confession of greed reverberated on every corner of the small town. Judge Helena acted with celerity. The reopening of the investigation was a catalyst for the truth flowing with force. The investigation team, with the warrant, returned to Arthur's residence. The search was meticulous, focused on traces of greed. Arthur, under interrogation, tried to maintain his innocence, but panic was visible. In a hidden safe, irrefutable proof was found. Documents falsifying Ricardo's signature on wills and powers of attorney, transferring valuable assets. Exorbitant debts and aggressive emails with his uncle, revealing anger over the inheritance, were also discovered. A letter from Ricardo expressed discontent and the intention to disinherit him. Each document dismantled Arthur's web of lies. Judge Helena and the prosecutor, upon analyzing the evidence, felt the weight of the injustice that had almost materialized. The prosecutor, previously convinced of Donna Clara's guilt, felt remorse, becoming a defender of the truth. The judge saw the confirmation of her faith in the pursuit of justice. It wasn't just a case. It was a reaffirmation that truth, however improbable, would always find the light. The decision was clear. Arthur would be charged and Donna Clara exonerated. The day of the final hearing arrived. The courtroom, once a stage of despair, was now one of hope. Donna Clara, accompanied by Dr. Sophia, entered with her head held high, Luro on her shoulder, a living symbol of truth. Judge Helena, her voice choked with emotion, delivered the verdict. In light of the new and irrefutable evidence and Luro's singular testimony, this court declares Donna Clara innocent of all charges. Justice, though delayed, has prevailed. A sigh of relief filled the room. Tears streamed down Donna Clara's face, tears of pure joy. She hugged Luro, who chirped, "Mission accomplished." Outside the courthouse, the community awaited her. Faces that had once looked at her with suspicion now approached with tear-filled eyes and pleas for forgiveness. Flowers, hugs, and words of support flooded Donna Clara. The shame of having judged prematurely was palpable, but the desire for redemption and human connection were greater. Donna Clara, with her kindness, accepted every gesture without resentment. She understood that to err is human, and forgiveness, the step towards healing. Her heart, once heavy, now felt light, filled with gratitude for Luro and for those who believed in her. Donna Clara's house, once a refuge of reclusion and pain, transformed into a home with open doors, a symbol of overcoming and hope. The truth, whispered by a parrot, exonerated a woman and healed community wounds, reaffirming that faith, altruism, and justice are unshakable pillars, capable of transforming a nightmare into a new breath of life. The new breath of life the sun promised was not long in manifesting. Donna Clara's innocence had been proclaimed, but justice still needed to run its course for Arthur. The entire city, which had previously whispered accusations against the elderly woman, now prepared to witness the outcome for the true culprit. The courthouse, which had once been a stage of despair for Donna Clara, now filled with a different expectation, a collective and profound desire for the truth, finally, to prevail in its entirety. On the day scheduled for Arthur's trial, the room was packed. Judge Helena, with her imposing and serene demeanor, presided over the session. The prosecutor, who had transitioned from accuser to defender of the truth, presented the evidence with renewed eloquence. His face marked by a seriousness that reflected the weight of responsibility. He detailed each discovery, the crystal-clear recording of Arthur's voice with his greedy threat, the falsified documents found in his secret safe, which unmasked the inheritance plot, the aggressive emails, and Mr. Ricardo's letter, which sealed the motive for the crime. Arthur, seated in the defendant's dock, was the image of despair. His face, previously pale, was now flushed, his eyes swollen and fixed on emptiness. With each piece of evidence presented, he shrank a little more, his facade of arrogance crumbling into pieces. His lips trembled, and he tried in vain to disguise the panic that consumed him. Luro's recording was played, and Arthur's voice, so clear and full of fury, echoed through the room, making him visibly flinch. He closed his eyes as if wanting to erase the sound of his own guilt and shame. Donna Clara was not present in the courtroom. She chose to follow the news from home, alongside Luro. There was no desire in her heart to see Arthur suffer, only the profound need for the truth to be established and for justice, for Ricardo to finally be served. Hearing the description of the evidence and Arthur's reaction on the radio, she felt a mix of sadness for the broken family and immense relief. Luro, on her shoulder, seemed to feel the same peace nestling against her neck. After the irrefutable presentation of evidence, Arthur's defense could not sustain its claims. The verdict was not long in being delivered. Judge Helena, with a firm and clear voice, declared Arthur guilty. The sentence, though not of death or explicit violence, was imprisonment, a long period that would make him reflect on the greed that led him to such an act. The courtroom erupted in a murmur of approval, a collective recognition that finally justice had been fully served. For Donna Clara, the news of Arthur's conviction brought a sense of closure. It wasn't a personal victory, but the confirmation that faith in truth and justice was not in vain. The community now looked at her not only with admiration, but with profound respect. The doors of her house, previously closed by fear and reclusion, were now open, not just to neighbors who came to ask for forgiveness, but to a future of peace and connection. The nightmare had ended, and the new breath of life flourished in its fullness, a testament to the power of overcoming and the most improbable and unexpected voice. The nightmare had ended, and the new breath of life flourished in its fullness, a testament to the power of overcoming and the most improbable and unexpected voice. In the days that followed Arthur's conviction, Donna Clara's small house, once a refuge of reclusion and pain, transformed into a beacon of hope and reconciliation. The doors, which had remained closed for so long, now opened with a lightness that reflected the peace in her heart. The community, once so quick to judge, now sought redemption. Neighbors who had averted their gaze or uttered malicious whispers approached Donna Clara's door with baskets of fruit, homemade cakes, and, above all, sincere words of apology. Donna Marta, the neighbor who had previously avoided her, now brought flowers from her garden, her eyes welling up with shame and affection. "Donna Clara, I am so sorry. We were unfair, blind. May God bless you for your strength and your forgiveness," she murmured, holding the elderly woman's wrinkled hands. Donna Clara, with her gentle smile, merely squeezed Marta's hand without resentment, her eyes conveying a silent understanding. She understood that to err is human, and forgiveness, the essential step towards healing. Luro, always on her shoulder, observed each interaction with intelligent curiosity, sometimes letting out a soft chirp, as if approving of the new atmosphere of human warmth. He was the living proof of truth, the link that had undone the web of lies and reconnected the community. The children from the street, previously instructed to keep their distance, now approached with fascination, asking to see the talking parrot who had saved Donna Clara. She, with patience and affection, told Luro's story, transforming the tragedy into a lesson about the importance of believing in the improbable and not judging by appearances. Dr. Sophia, who had become a loyal friend, visited Donna Clara frequently, no longer out of professional duty, but out of genuine affection. Sitting on the porch, drinking tea, they talked about life, about the resilience of the human spirit, and about the wisdom that can come from the most unexpected places. "Donna Clara, you not only proved your innocence, but taught us all an invaluable lesson," the ethologist commented one day, a sincere smile lighting up her face. "Your faith in Luro, your persistence, that's something I will carry forever." Donna Clara merely smiled, stroking Luro's feathers. "Faith, my dear, is the last thing one loses. And truth, it always finds a way to come to light, even if it's through a sharp beak." Donna Clara's house, once silent and solitary, now echoed with laughter, conversations, and Luro's joyful song. It was a home with open doors, a symbol of overcoming and hope, where the pain of the past gave way to the promise of a future of connection and altruism. Justice, which had seemed so distant, had been fully served, and with it the healing of a community and the reaffirmation that kindness and truth are unshakable pillars capable of transforming the darkest nightmare into a new and vibrant breath of life. Donna Clara, with Luro on her shoulder, watched the sun set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Her heart was light, filled with gratitude and a profound peace. Life finally had bloomed again. The golden hues of the sunset enveloped Donna Clara's small house, bathing it in a soft warmth that seemed to embrace her soul. Luro, on her shoulder, snuggled in, a familiar and comforting warmth against her wrinkled skin. That late afternoon was not just the end of a day, but the culmination of a tortuous journey, now illuminated by peace. Life, which for so long had hidden in the shadows of reclusion and injustice, finally blossomed in vibrant colors, promising a serene tomorrow full of new possibilities. In the days and weeks that followed, the transformation in Donna Clara's life became palpable. The house, once a silent and at times melancholic sanctuary, was now a meeting point, a refuge of kindness and forgiveness. The neighbors' visits did not cease. Donna Marta, with her eyes still welling up with regret, brought fresh bread and told childhood stories, seeking to mend the ties that the trial had broken. Mr. Joachim, the baker, who had previously looked at her with suspicion, now made a point of delivering the warmest bread to her door, always with a smile and a sincere apology. Donna Clara received everyone with the same serenity and a welcoming smile, without a trace of resentment. Her capacity to forgive, to understand human fragility, and the speed with which fear and misinformation can blind, was a testament to her noble soul. Luro, the little green-feathered hero, was the star of these gatherings. The neighborhood children, who had previously seen the parrot as a distant curiosity, now gathered on the porch, eager to hear his imitations and funny phrases. Donna Clara, sitting in her rocking chair, with Luro on her shoulder, told the story of the truth that came from the most unexpected places, transforming pain into a life lesson for everyone. She spoke about the importance of listening, of not judging by appearances, and of maintaining faith, even when all seems lost. Her eyes shone with newfound wisdom, a glow that only the overcoming of great adversity can bring. Dr. Sophia, now a dear friend, continued her visits, not just to check on Luro's well-being, but to enjoy Donna Clara's company. They spent hours talking, laughing, and at times in silence, simply appreciating the quietness and beauty of the garden that Donna Clara, with the help of her neighbors, was beginning to revitalize. "You know, Donna Clara," Dr. Sophia said one afternoon, "you and Luro didn't just solve a crime. You healed a community. You showed that truth and kindness are contagious." Donna Clara merely smiled, stroking Luro's head. "Truth, my dear, is like a seed. It needs time, patience, and a little faith to germinate. But when it blossoms, no one can stop it." Donna Clara's house, with its always open doors, became a symbol. No longer a symbol of reclusion or a dark past, but a beacon of hope, of human connection, and that justice, however long it takes, always finds its way. Donna Clara's altruism, her resilience, and Luro's unexpected voice had woven a new tapestry for the city, one where the threads of compassion and understanding were stronger. Donna Clara, feeling the gentle breeze on her face and the warmth of the sun on her skin, closed her eyes for an instant. She could hear the murmur of neighbors' conversations on the porch, the laughter of children in the garden, and Luro's contented chirp. Her heart was overflowing. The nightmare had completely dissipated, and life, in its purest essence, had returned, richer and more meaningful than ever. Unwavering faith, the strength of truth, and the connection of a simple, pure love had triumphed over darkness, proving that even in the darkest moments, a new breath of life always waits to blossom. Life, in its purest essence, had returned, richer and more meaningful than ever. Unwavering faith, the strength of truth, and the connection of a simple, pure love had triumphed over darkness, proving that, even in the darkest moments, a new breath of life always waits to blossom. And it did blossom. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Donna Clara's small house, once a refuge of silence and pain, became the pulsating heart of a community reborn. The doors, which had been closed for so long, now opened with joyful frequency, inviting light and companionship inside. Donna Clara, with the serenity that only overcoming can grant, embraced this new phase with a kindness that disarmed any lingering guilt or shame in the hearts of her neighbors. Donna Marta, with her freshly baked gingerbread, was a constant presence, her eyes welling up with gratitude each time Donna Clara accepted a piece. Mr. Joachim, the baker, not only delivered the warmest bread, but also brought rare seeds for Donna Clara's garden, helping her replant the flowers that had withered during her ordeal. The children, once shy, now ran through her yard, their laughter mingling with Luro's joyful chirps. As he became the unofficial mascot of the neighborhood, he, the little green-feathered hero, continued to surprise everyone with his imitations and phrases, but now his words were of joy and contagious contentment. Dr. Sophia, whose friendship had deepened unexpectedly, was a regular confidant. Their conversations on the porch, under the gentle afternoon sun, were filled with reflections on life, human resilience, and the power of truth. "You know, Donna Clara," Sophia said one day, watching Luro perched on the elderly woman's shoulder, "what happened here wasn't just the resolution of a crime. It was a lesson for all of us. A lesson about the importance of looking beyond what the eyes see, of listening with the heart." Donna Clara smiled, stroking Luro's soft feathers. "Truth, my dear, is like water. It always finds a crack to pass through, to nourish the dry earth. And forgiveness, our forgiveness, is the sun that makes everything bloom again." Her garden, once neglected, now bloomed in vibrant colors, a mirror of Donna Clara's soul. Roses, daisies, and lavender exuded a sweet fragrance, attracting butterflies and hummingbirds, transforming the space into a small paradise. The neighbors, in a collective gesture of affection, had united to help revitalize it, each planting a seedling, a symbol of their own redemption and the rebirth of the community. Afternoons were filled with the murmur of conversations on the porch, the clinking of teacups, and the soft sound of an old song that Donna Clara sometimes hummed. She shared her recipes, her life stories, and the wisdom accumulated over so many years, becoming a central figure, a beloved and respected matriarch. Luro, the faithful companion, was the silent guardian of all this transformation. His bright eyes observed the world with remarkable intelligence, and his chirp, once a cry of alarm, was now a sound of pure joy. He nestled against Donna Clara's neck, a constant warmth, a living reminder that love and loyalty could move mountains, or in this case, unravel mysteries and heal hearts. The connection between them, forged in adversity, was now an unbreakable bond, a testament to the strength of the simplest and purest ties. Donna Clara, at the end of each day, sat in her rocking chair, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of hope. Her heart, once heavy with injustice, now overflowed with gratitude. There was no room for resentment, only the certainty that life, even after the fiercest storms, always offered the promise of a new dawn. Justice had been served, the community had redeemed itself, and she, Donna Clara, had found not only her innocence, but a renewed purpose, a life full of connection, altruism, and a peace that was, in itself, the most beautiful of victories. The new breath of life had become the very essence of her existence, a beacon to guide everyone.